Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the SBLGuru. It's going to be a vodcast today, and we've got a very special guest here today, and her name is Lorraine. I met her over 30 years ago in Surfers Paradise, so I'll let her give a little bio and introduce herself as to who she is and what she's doing at the moment.
Okay, my name is Lorraine Kingham. I'm originally from England, and I'm a physiotherapist. I went to school in St Thomas's Hospital in London, in Westminster, many moons ago. Graduated in 91 and met Marty on the trail backpacking right after that, 91 through 92 in Australia. And since then, spent a couple of years working in London and then moved to America to be a traveling PT. Had various adventures and ultimately started my own business called BritPt. It was the first cash-based practice in North Carolina in 2005. And so I have a special interest in dry needling and treating chronic complex pain syndromes, and love working with body aches and pains at this point.
This is good. This is good. Can I just be clear to the people in the UK? PT is not personal trainer. It is physiotherapist. So for all the people who are getting confused, this is a personal trainer. Why is she doing things with my back? PT is physiotherapist, right?
That's correct in the UK. And in America, we say physical therapist at this point as well. But physiotherapist is still what I go by, because in the UK, we use our hands a lot more than they were trained to in the US in general. So it does make a distinction.
Okay, so why we're here today is we know a lot of students, they spend a lot of time revising for the examination. And generally what they're doing is they're sitting down in front of a computer for can be for hours and hours on end, looking at notes, typing, revising. And often the issue we face having to sit down on a computer all day, even at work, is we have back pain, right? We've got back pain, we've got neck pain, and we're just looking, with your expertise in the physical therapy and pain management, we're just looking for some kind of tips as to what we can do to maximize our potential for studying and make sure we've got less time hurting our back and doing things. So I just wonder whether you can share with us, what are the 2 or 3 tips when you're setting up your room to avoid backache when you're doing your revising?
Yeah, sure. So single biggest thing, these are obvious, but it's always good to say it, is a lack of movement, because like you were saying, you're really in your brain, you're in your head, you're very goal oriented. The computer is sucking you in. And before you know it, you spend an hour sitting there. And at the end of the day, our bodies are built to move. And they depend on movement. They depend on movement for circulation, but also for our biochemistry to shift in places like our discs. If we sit still too long, essentially our discs become acidic, which is a chemical irritation to ligaments, and then muscles can start to get stiff and sore. So movement is extremely important. One of the easiest things I think you can do, which is also a great thing, is drink tons of water, because if you drink lots of water, you will have to get up and pee. Absolutely. So I have some people say, well, I get sore when I sit for 2 hours. And I'm like, well, it's never going to be my goal for you to sit for 2 hours. I think 45 minutes is a good max, because you need to get up, take a break, move around, stand, even if you can stand up and look at your screen. But stand up, do some stretches, move your body, take a few deep breaths, and we'll talk more about that. But drink plenty of water, so you have got to go to the bathroom, and just move across your house. It's a great opportunity to flip the laundry if you're at home, or take the trash out, or see to the dog, or something. But take a break about every 30 to 45 minutes. Yeah. And ultimately, giving your brain that pause as well is going to really help you take that information in to a deeper level.
That's so good.
Movement is huge. We're built to move. The second one is the fact that we slump, right? We all become really C-shaped when we sit. I see you correcting your posture there. That's very good. And if I bring my screen down just a little bit, one of the quickest, easiest tricks I show people is something very available and easy, is a yoga mat. They're cheap and cheerful. You can pick them up from any of these sort of TJ Maxx, TK Maxx, whatever they call it. In the UK, tape it, as I've done, and then stick it behind you in your chair.
Wow. Okay.
Because then what happens is, I'll turn a bit. It's going to go along the length of your spine. Okay. So there's a bit of biofeedback there that you just kind of keep in contact with you, and it's going to keep you upright. And to that point, what you need to make sure your chair back is to support you. That's what it's for. It's called a back support. So you need to make sure that you are in contact with either the chair back, if you've got longer legs, if you're more petite like I am, a yoga mat rolled up like this will really fill up that distance in the back so I can feel very, very solid in my sitting bones. My feet are on the floor and level, which is where they should be,
Okay.
but my whole spine is supported. Now, you can't keep it there all the time, but this is a really great reminder to sit up and be straight and get your chest open. Because what we tend to do is this,
Yeah.
and your head goes forward, your head weighs 10 to 15 pounds. It ends up with all that stress right there, which is where the fulcrum is, and your spine just generally becomes a C shape. But in actual fact, it's built to absorb shock and stress, and so it's retroflective curves is what we call it. They're built to absorb shock when we're upright and locomoting. So we want to really support that, and this really helps to do that in a simple, cheap, inexpensive way.
That's so good. Such a great idea. And what about the positioning of the screen? Like because I kind of often feel I'm looking slightly down. Should I be looking like parallel to it?
Absolutely, yeah, you should. So essentially, if you look at somebody from the side as they're sitting, everything should be 90-degree angles. Okay, so your feet are flat on the floor, or again, if you're petite and the yoga mat doesn't get you where you need to be, you can use something simple like a yoga block. Again, cheap, cheerful, very available. You can use books for that matter. Put them under your feet and level you so that it pushes you back in the chair. So you're going to have a 90-degree angle at your knees and at your hips. And then all your building blocks in your spine and your head stack on top of each other. And then your arms should drop down beside you. And ideally, your elbows should also just be at 90 degrees. And your wrist, your forearm, should be heavy on the table, on the desk. And then all you're moving is your wrist.
Okay.
So there's all this, but a lot of people, what they do is lean into the mouse. So if you're a right-handed person, this is happening. And people are like that for ages and ages and hours, and they tend to get really tight along one side of their low back and their shoulder, and that whole side, it actually starts to contract and shorten, and it becomes a default so that it's just much shorter than the other side. So a really, really easy fix to that is, the awareness thing. The yoga mat will help with that, because if you start going sideways, it will flop out to the side, or you'll just feel that it's not there anymore. But you can also say, okay, I'm going to bring my right arm up, if that's the side I'm usually leaning to on the mouse, take it up and over, grab the wrist and pull. And so you're pushing down with your sitting bone on the right and making yourself really, really long and long through that right side, and taking a deep breath into those lower ribs. So that's just an easy, easy stretch you can do right there.
Wow. And now, sometimes when I move my neck, I crack. Does that mean I'm going to die? Is that a bad sign? Or is it a good sign? If
Probably not this week.
cracking?
Well, what it means is that things are not tracking quite the way they should.
Right.
And so it's really indicative, probably the fact that you've got a forward head posture when you're doing it.
Okay.
So for instance, if I turn sideways, can you see me from there?
Yeah.
And I do this.
Yeah.
Rice Krispies, right? Snap, crackle, pop. If I do it here, I don't feel any or hardly any of that. It's purely just a muscular stretch. So a lot of that is just things are not sitting quite where they should in alignment. Now, if you get one of those almighty pops and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I feel really different. Sometimes a joint that's kind of been stuck together suddenly releases, and actually the fluid inside the joint kind of explodes into gas as you create a vacuum.
Yeah.
So it's like it becomes nitrogen gas basically. But over time, that then reabsorbs back to the liquid, and then you have to do it again. And that movement is kind of addictive, and people find themselves clicking and clicking
Yeah.
and clicking. But you end up overstretching at that one particular level. It's a much better thing to gently stretch the whole thing. But you should never grab your head and pull down.
Okay. That's bad.
You really, what's better is to grasp the base of the chair and just get an anchor down there, and then pull your whole body away. So you've taken the whole slack up the fascial line from your wrist to your shoulder, and then tip your head. And you won't have to go very far to get a really big stretch, and it'll be all the way down your arm.
Wow.
So that's a much more complete fascial stretch, but you won't overstretch in the neck itself, which is what people often do.
I think I've been doing that wrong. I think I'm definitely guilty of all those things we said, like slouching forward, like cracking the neck.
That's what keeps me in a job. I'm thrilled to hear
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah. So this is like you're doing yourself out of work here, potentially, I think.
And yet somehow it doesn't.
And what about, like, you just mentioned a couple of things there. Can you just give us a couple of stretches, either standing up when you do your 40-minute break, that you should be looking at? Is there any sort of thing that's very easy to do and like difficult to do wrong? Because often, we're doing it by ourselves.
Yeah. So I think the thing to bear in mind, just as a philosophy, is when you're sitting, everything is dropping down in C-shaped. You're collapsed in at the chest. You're shortened in the abdominal wall. Your hip flexors are tight. Like everything is compressed. So taking opportunities to get long. So standing up, maybe putting your hands behind your back or on your sort of kidney area and arching back.
Okay.
Doing like just gently. And you'll probably find the 10th one feels a whole lot better than the first.
Right.
And that you'll go further and it's more fluid. But you're sort of lubricating the joint when you do that. But you're going to stretch out that front line. Similarly, actually in bed, what I do a lot of times is set my alarm 10 minutes early. I hit snooze, put a pillow right across my mid-back, and then just lay with my arms up and over to just completely stretch my abdominal wall and the whole pec and front line.
Well, that's a good
because
tip.
That's what's tightening all of the time. When we sit so much, which we're not built to do. We're not built to do that. I mean, people really should, if they have an option to stand for a period of time, they should do that. Even if you're taking your laptop, over to the kitchen countertop for a bit and standing, take those 10, 20-minute breaks, maybe 3 to 4 times a day, and just do something different with your body. And if you're going to go and do a workout, think about it. Don't do pecs. Don't do ab crunches. Don't do like the Roman chair where it's knee to chest. Don't get on a bike. Don't do all the sitting things where you're continuing to shorten things.
Yeah, okay.
Take
so you've got to do
opportunities to elongate. Walk, elliptical machine, do the things that elongate. Swimming, fabulous. Just do different things. Pilates, yoga, all of those things.
That is fantastic. I think it's got some really nice insights there into it. Now, I know you've just written a book, so could you show us your book? And it looks so beautiful. I've just seen the cover; it's like really beautiful. So,
thank you.
And just tell us a little bit about it and how we can get hold of a copy of that book.
Sure.
And what is it about?
It's called Healthy is Beautiful. I was just telling you earlier, it's the result of a 10-year project. It was actually started for my daughter when she was in her early preteen years. A lot of young women have dysmorphia. They're very insecure about their body types, think there's something wrong with them. And really all the words that young women use about themselves are pretty derogatory. There's a lot of judgment. And so I'm really trying to change the language around girls and their bodies, changing it to the scientific words that we use: ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, and talking about the fact that we all have our genetic lot in life. And what we need to do is play to our strengths and make the best of what we've got, because there's pros and cons to all these body types. But at every point in time, a different body type sort of has won the lottery. And is the it girl. And it changes, from the bombshells in the 50s to Twiggy in the 60s to, it's just impossible, right? We're born the way we are. There's only a certain way we can look and stay healthy. And I think we need to really lean into the best way to take care of ourselves day to day. Because the healthiest version of you is always going to be the most beautiful. And I just think so many young girls, they're so completely absorbed with what they're seeing on social media, and all this energy is being just sucked away from what they could really do with their lives and what they should be focusing on and their passions, because of the fact they're worried about their self-image. And this is my little fight to redress the balance.
That sounds fantastic. Now, if we're overseas, is there a website? I can put a link in the description, of course, for the website, or is it email, or is there a way to get hold of this book if we're
absolutely
not in the US?
It's self-published, and so I published it through lulu.com. I think then if you search Healthy is Beautiful, that it should come up, hopefully, but we will definitely get you a link so that you can send people there more directly. But yeah, anybody local to me obviously can get it directly from me, but lulu.com is the best place to get it, if not. And people have been getting it in England, and our friends all over the place that we know have been getting copies,
myself, actually,
which has been so exciting.
Yeah.
It's just been a really wonderful thing. And hopefully at some point we'll move it forward and make it part of the health curriculum in schools. That's my pie in the sky.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, that's the end of part 1 of my conversation with Lorraine Kingham, the BritPt. If you want to hear more, there are 2 more parts to this interview. Part 2 looks at how you can use breath work to calm yourself before you enter the exam. And part 3 looks at managing your mental health while you're revising. So please like and subscribe to the channel, and look out for the links I post in the video if you're interested in getting the book or you want to do a course with me at martywindle.com. Thanks very much.